All right. And US President Donald Trump has claimed that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has promised him that New Delhi will stop buying Russian oil, describing it as a big move in Washington's campaign to isolate Moscow over the war in Ukraine. Addressing reporters at the White House, Trump said that he was not happy with India importing oil from Russia, which Washington views as directly financing the conflict in Ukraine.
A war that Russia should have won in the first week, and they're going into the fourth year. And I want to see it stop. So I was not happy that India was buying oil. And he assured me today that they will not be buying oil from Russia. That's a big stop. They will, within a short period of time, they will not be buying oil from Russia. And they'll go back to Russia after the war's over.
Now, Trump emphasized that India's move to stop buying Russian oil would help end the conflict in Ukraine, adding that New Delhi's formal trade relations with Moscow could resume once the war is over. Even though the US president claimed that he spoke to Prime Minister Modi today, the last known conversation between the two leaders took place on the 9th of October, when Prime Minister Modi congratulated Trump on the success of the Gaza peace plan. India responded to the US president's statement and underlined that safeguarding the interests of its consumers remains New Delhi's top priority. MEA spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal also stressed that ensuring stable energy prices and secured supplies have been the twin goal of India's energy policy. He noted that New Delhi has been expanding its energy procurement with the US over the past decade. However, the MEA is yet to comment on Trump's claim that Prime Minister Modi promised him to stop purchasing oil from Russia. Trump in August raised tariffs on Indian exports to the United States to 50%, which included the additional 25%, which was the punishment, apparently, with Trump's aides accusing India of fueling Russia's war in Ukraine. In his White House remarks, Trump lauded Prime Minister Modi as a great man and a seasoned leader. However, he soon made some loose remarks, prompting him to clarify himself.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor. I think they were great. He reported to me that you're great. He's a great man, you know. Modi is a great man. That he loves Trump. Now, I don't know if the word love, I don't want you to take that any different. I don't want to destroy his political career, okay?
Now, the announcement follows a recent meeting between Trump's new nominee for Indian Ambassador Sergio Gore and Prime Minister Modi. Gore's appointment, given his close ties to Trump, was interpreted as a reaffirmation of steady and friendly US-India relations. All right. All right, so of course, this is another statement by Trump. Lots to discuss here. For more on this, we're being joined by Collins Chong-Yu-Keat, Foreign Affairs and Security Strategist, University of Malaya, as well as Ben Aris, founder and editor-in-chief of BNA IntelliNews, and also former Moscow bureau chief for the Daily Telegraph. Thank you so much for the both of you for joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Collins, I'd like to come to you first. Of course, we've heard the statements that Trump has made. India has always prioritized its national interests and, of course, its energy security. With what Trump is saying right now, the big question right now is, are we looking at a policy of appeasement? Do you think Trump is a dependable ally?
Yes, absolutely. You can see how, U.S. remains India's most important partner, not only in terms of security aspects, of course, increasingly on economic and trade resilience. We have seen how the track record of Trump shows that he delivers on what he promises. Renegotiate NAFTA into USMCA to secure the Abraham Accords, to pressure NATO members to increase defense spending, and all this achieving record domestic economic growth. And it is, of course, peace through strength mantra. While unconventional, still, his diplomatic approach is grounded in transactional clarity. And of course, also is transparent. It's not disguised under this vague multilateralism approach, has been, being practiced by most nations. And nations respected his firmness against adversaries, including China, including Iran, North Korea, and his ability to go beyond conventional means to secure favorable deals and to provide this sense of confidence and dependability in results. And we can see that, of course, throughout the first term and now in the early part of the second term, this unconventional approach, and he delivers on what he has promised. And most importantly, he's being realistic. He uses his own personal diplomacy to his maximum effect, and we can see now the results of a peaceful and more, secure world, not only in the Middle East, but of course increasingly in part of the European conflict. So I would argue that India is better off to rely to secure greater ties with the US under Trump against these potential risks and challenges, not only from Pakistan, but increasingly from China. And to better secure India, I would argue that Trump is the person, a much dependable person for India.
Mr. Harris, let me just come to you on the same point. Of course, he's mentioned China and Korea as well, and also spoken of how this is an unconventional approach. I want to ask you, do you think Trump is a dependable ally, or his foreign policy is that of, well, appeasement policy? What would you say?
I don't think he is dependable in so much as, there's no partnership between the US and India. The way Trump comes at this and what's changed so dramatically since he came into office is that he's now operating on what we call a transactional basis. He sells himself, he sees himself as a deal maker. And so any interaction he has with another country, in this case India, is all about a deal. And the deal has to benefit the states. In some way, either economically or geopolitically. So he's threatening to put sanctions on India. I think what's changed in the last few months is that Trump is increasingly disappointed with Putin, that he had various deals that they discussed. If you remember, they met in Alaska in August, and then a few days later, the European leaders met, and Trump was talking about a bilateral, trilateral meeting between Zelensky, Putin, and himself in order to put an end to the war. But at the same time, and both Trump and Putin have confirmed this in the meantime, they talked about a lot of deals that they were going to do with oil, with rare earth metal development in both Russia and Alaska, restarting Boeing cooperation with the Russian air fleet because it needs parts and Boeing needs Russian titanium. And that's all come to nothing. The meeting with Zelensky didn't happen, the deals didn't happen. And what we're seeing now is the Trump administration ratcheting up pressure on Russia and going after the oil. And what they want to do is cut Russia's income that it earns. And India, together with China, is the biggest purchaser of oil. And so now he's threatening India with these sanctions and trying to force them to drop this oil business, which for India is enormously profitable because Russia's forced into the situation where it's offering huge discounts on a barrel of oil of up to $20 discount. So it's a real moneymaker. And Trump is trying to pressure into India into stopping that business to cut that income that Russia makes. And Russia's made nearly $1 trillion in the last 3 years from its oil exports, which of course is going to fund the war.
Right. Mr. Yuki, let me just come back to you on this point. Trump, the deal maker we're looking at here, we know that he said that he could get the Russia-Ukraine war done in about 24 hours, then 100 days. Of course, we're seeing nothing has happened so far. And as Mr. Harris also mentioned, he's extremely disappointed in Putin, something that he has mentioned time and again. That being said, that's when we see the pressure on India and on China as well. Do you think Trump is only using this as a pressure tactic? Because when we talk about allies, we've seen his statements in the Quad, in NATO. We are seeing how Pakistan and Israel, who do of course rally behind him for the Nobel Peace Prize, they are getting away with some deals as well. When it comes to India, he's made this big statement. Again, India has categorically mentioned that its national interests are a priority. So how long can Trump get away with this unconventional approach, this image of a provocator?
Yes, I will argue that India has not been used as a piggyback on the efforts and the intent of Trump, to finally secure a peace deal in Ukraine. We have seen how during the first term, Trump has elevated US-India ties to whole new levels under Modi, in terms of defense interoperability, to Indo-Pacific shared framework of peace and stability, to counter China. And of course, he sees India as a co-equal partner, not as a tie-in state. And of course, also it's about reciprocal reliability. He values allies who pull their weight, who have committed to increase their own defense spending. Nations like India, Japan, Poland, they all invest in self-reliance. And of course, they found a dependable ally, respectful partner in Trump. And of course, a peace agreement, a peaceful resolve approaches in Ukraine will also benefit not only the US, of course, for India itself, in terms of relations with Russia, in terms of a new normalized economic and trade ties with Russia, in terms of oil purchases. And I see that as, of course, also as in this near term of how he deals with Putin, in terms of how he deals with Xi. And Modi is the only reliable ally that Trump has now in the region to counter both China and Russia to a certain extent. But to resolve the issue of Ukraine, it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game and not at the expense of the other. And of course, it's all about mutual respect for sovereignty. And his approach empowers partners to defend their own interests rather than relying blindly on the U.S. protection. But at the same time, moving forward, even in post-Trump era, this revamp of ties, this revamp of U.S.-India ties will benefit not only India alone, but to have this kind of ripple effects for the region in terms of how a renewed U.S. presence, not only through Quad, but also through a much more advanced, deepening state of ties between Washington and New Delhi, that will also benefit Russia in the long run once the issue is resolved in Ukraine.
Right.
So I'll argue that we shouldn't see that from the lens of how India is being used by Trump to have a better bargaining chips against Putin. Not in this sense.
Mr. Harris, let me just bring you back to this conversation. Of course, as Mr. Yukit mentioned as well, India has been a dependable ally always. The question here is whether or not Trump is a dependable ally and whether it's time to now call out Trump on this so-called unconventional approach, this figure of a provocator that he plays in the global stage, and whether it's his way or the highway. How long can this continue? Is it time to call Trump out on this?
I don't think, look, Modi's in a really difficult position in so much as America has some real leverage over India because of the trade relations that is dependent on the States for trade. And China is not in that position. I mean, China has significant trade, but it has its rare earth metals weapon, which it can basically strangle the whole of the US tech sector. And what he's, at the same time, while Putin and Xi Jinping are standing up to Trump and defying him in a geopolitical head-to-head clash, Modi and to some extent also Lula in Brazil from the BRICS bloc are much more moderate. They don't want to go into a geopolitical east-west clash, a polarization of the world. They want to have good relations with everybody. And so what Modi's trying to do is the difficult diplomacy of trying to balance his relations. I mean, clearly India's become much closer to Russia in so much as Modi was in Moscow last August and did a whole bunch of arms, food, fertilizer, energy deals with the Kremlin. And then Modi also showed up in China last month at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit and was visibly and publicly rubbing shoulders with Xi Jinping, Putin, and Kim Jong-un from North Korea, which was very anti-Western move. I think what he's trying to do now is placate Trump. He's going to make some concessions. He's already opened talks with the Iranians about importing oil from there instead of Russia. So he's going to offer some sort of SOP that he will reduce Russian oil and replace it with Iranian. But the bottom line is that at the end of the day, it's in India's national interest to continue to import this Russian oil because it's so cheap, because it's so profitable. And also he needs to maintain, at the same time as he has good relations with Trump, he also needs to maintain his relations with Putin, which is also an extremely important trade partner, particularly on the weapons fronts. They're after these 400s for the northern border.
Right. Mr. Harris and Mr. Yukit, of course, we're back to the question of national interest, something that India is, of course, going to prioritize. And to that end, of course, the United States is an important partner, and so is Vladimir Putin and Russian oil. So thank you so much for joining us on the show with your perspectives on this. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.